Checking the mailbox, Verotchka found a pink piece of paper. Increasing the size of your living space without registration and SMS. You have a small apartment and you want it to become bigger, but the money, of course, for a new spacious apartment you do not have. Small salary, unplanned children, relatives who need care and therefore they live with you. You will forget about the lack of so necessary square meters. Just call us on the phone and our experts in the shortest possible time will come and solve your housing problems. Do not worry about prices. Our prices are so ridiculous that they are affordable even for a Russian teacher or a cleaning lady. Just call us right now and check out our flexible system of installments and payments. A phone number followed. Verotchka took the flyer home and showed it to her husband Sergei. What a silly thing, he grinned after reading it. It doesn't work like that. That's what I think, agreed his wife, although we could use the extra meters. Sergei turned the flyer over. On the back side, there was a family of cheerful little people on the background of the house. Your super specialists will come. They will whistle in your ears that you need to make repairs with new technology and visually the apartment will increase in size. Due to optical illusions, that's all, explained Sergei, and then offer a wild loan for which we will pay until retirement. The usual divorce for money. Aha, agreed Verotchka thoughtfully. But why Timofeeva asked me if we had called this office. That Timofeeva who specially buys expired products from Caucasians from the grocery store. Laughed Sergei, she certainly knows better. She would kill herself for a penny, but she would not take such a risk. Their apartment was a small one-room, 40 square meters, but it had a big kitchen and a separate bathroom and a loggia. It was perfect to live together and only 3 years left to pay the mortgage. But Verotchka tried to think ahead. They'd only been married a year, but the clock is ticking and it's time to think about a child. Well, 2 years he will live in a one-bedroom with his parents, well, 3, and then what? A child needs a separate room. And if there will be 2 of them, what to do then? Sergei's parents had their own apartment in Magnitogorsk, but not to go there from Moscow. They just got out of the province in the center, where there are so many opportunities. No thanks, of course, to the relatives. They helped with money as they could so that the children could get a job and buy an apartment, but then how to live? Verotchka thought about it all the time. My husband doesn't care. She lives for today. She would go on maternity leave, and then she would get a new apartment. She pestered Sergei with plans for the future regularly every week. You at least temper their appetites. Fairly indignant, he. Every month something to buy. Furniture, dishwasher, robot vacuum cleaner, which you so wanted. And you have to leave some money for entertainment. You like going to the movies so much, don't you? Movies. We go once a month and only to daytime shows, so it's cheaper. I'm not even talking about flowers and jewelry. And before we got married, you gave me gifts all the time, she scandalized. I wish you'd stop sucking beer every day. You don't even realize how much money it costs. Is that what you want? What? Let me get a second job, he suggested. Yeah, I will. I hardly ever see you at home anyway. I just want you to be more responsible with your spending. Our paychecks barely cover the mortgage. And then there's transportation, utilities, internet. We'll never save up for a new apartment, so we'll buy in the region. Housing prices are lower there, he consoled her. So live in the region yourself, Verotchka sulked, plebeian. And so every week. Then they reconciled. But this question tormented her and did not let her sleep well at night. One day Sergei returned from work and saw that the door to the apartment was open. He went in and found his wife and 2 young men in orange overalls in the kitchen. There were boxes of tools in the hallway. Verotchka was glowing with happiness. Sergei, it's just a miracle, she joyfully reported. This firm really provides services to expand housing. The technicians are already finishing everything. What? He did not believe it. This is a new technology developed by Russian scientists with an important look, said one of the men in overalls, while they are still in secret so that foreigners did not find out and did not steal the idea. We sell only to our own. What are you selling? Sergei felt he was being treated like an idiot. You'll see for yourself. You have 2 new rooms in the hall. Each 10 square meters according to the price. Sergei, not believing, rushed into the hall, and indeed to the right and left were now doors. He pulled the handle and opened the door inside, and he could not believe his eyes. He stood in the empty hall of his apartment, only that there was no window. He walked around the room, feeling the walls in the semi-darkness. The walls felt like real walls made of brick. He jumped around. The floor was concrete. Just in case, he felt the floor too. The second room is the same, Verochka announced triumphantly. She stood in the doorway with her arms crossed on her chest in triumph. But this is our room. It was like this when we bought the apartment. Before the renovation, Sergei said in a weak voice. Only there are no windows or electrics. Well, the windows are still a problem, coughing, admitted the technician in orange overalls and, pushing his wife aside, went into the room 10 square meters. We measured everything exactly. Your house is new. You'll install the electricity and you'll be free to live. And what kind of technology? Sergei caught up. Have you heard about the 5th dimension? The man inquired. This is it. But of course there are certain instructions and safety precautions for living in such a room. He took a flashlight out of his pocket and shone it on the walls. See? Sergei saw the walls of the room light up. There were glowing drawings and symbols intertwined in a single intricate pattern. I see. Here, this construction of lines and symbols forms the necessary space within itself. The dimensions depend only on the amount of material used. The glowing lines are paint with nanobots. When combined together, they work like a 5th-dimensional field generator. Well, that's it in a nutshell. The details will be too tedious for you. The nanobots form a new space within the primary. Since the only place to expand was the hall, it's a copy of it, only a little smaller. And it is not dangerous to live here? Sergei asked. Not if you don't erase the lines, no. The technician reassured him. They are resistant to moisture, but from time to time you have to renew them, so it's best not to wallpaper or paint on them. And don't scratch them, or the space may be disturbed and you will suffer. We won't, Verochka vowed. The main thing is that now we have rooms, and you can hang carpets on the walls. And how much does such an extension cost? Asked Sergei when they left the room. 20,000 for 2 rooms, 3,000 each for the doors, 12,000 for a new lock and key, plus the work. A total of 50,000, reported the wife. I've already paid. From your stash. Better 2 new rooms than your new computer. Yes, Sergei thought sadly he would have to save up for a new computer. And the subscription service. 1,000 a month. And that's a prerequisite, the technician added. They went to the kitchen, where Verochka showed Sergei the contracts for installation of equipment and subscription service. She had already signed both of them. Then the technician asked them to go to the front door, where his partner was picking the lock. All done. See how it works, the technician offered. The lock on the door was different now. A large, shaped key. The technician closed the front door and opened it again. Go through and make sure there are no rooms, he suggested. Sergei went. The doors were gone. The hall looked as usual. He returned and confirmed the technician's words. He closed the door again. Now insert the key into the keyhole. 3 turns to the right. 1 left. For right. 2 left. Open the door. There you go, your rooms are here. Verochka went to check after Sergei. The doors were there. They opened them and admired the new rooms. Certain turns of the key in the lock, it's an algorithm to activate the nanobots. The circuit closes at the front door. If you just open the door, the 5th dimension won't show up. But if you do everything according to the instructions, the signal from the key goes to the monitoring station located on the roof of one of the high-rise buildings in your neighborhood. The station sends a confirmation code and activation takes place, explained the technician. And what will happen to the things in the room if you leave them there and go in the usual way? Verochka asked. They will disappear until you activate them. That's why it is written in the contract that you have no right to sell the housing expanded with the help of the fifth dimension together with the rooms you bought from us. If you do so without our permission, we have the right to disable your fifth dimension housing remotely. You are advised to read it carefully and especially the safety clauses. What about them? What if you leave a pet or a child in the room and open the door in the usual way, forgetting about it? The technician shrugged his shoulders. We are not responsible for that either. In addition, you signed that you will not notify the management company and public services that you have acquired additional living space in your apartment. For failure to comply with this clause, we can unilaterally terminate our cooperation with you. At night, Sergei and Verochka lay on the bed in an embrace and talked. They both couldn't sleep, so many impressions in one day. It's all wrong, said Sergei. Well, it does not happen so that cheap to get a whole new 2 rooms. Oh, everything's wrong with you. Everywhere you look for a catch. If there's an opportunity, why not take it? You'd better think of a way to get electricity in there. You can't spoil the walls, Sergei sighed. So it won't be pretty. We'll have to throw in extension cords. We'll be patient. Better that than nothing. And I already know where to buy screens, decided Verochka. She chirped about the new purchases until she fell asleep. Sergei could not fall asleep. The outlines of the doors in the moonlight seemed ominous to him. Sergei sat on the floor in the hall near the left room and cursed his neighbor Timofeeva. The bastard! After they had bought this magical apartment, there was no escape from her. The firm New Horizons, wow! It was Timofeeva who had advised Verochka to apply there, and now for some reason she decided that they owed her for this service for the rest of their lives. And she pestered Sergei with petty requests every day. She saw how he had equipped his rooms with extension cords and wanted one too. Help an old, lonely woman. I did it for your sake. I begged them to do it for you. You have a young family. A child will soon be here, but I have no help from where to wait. I live alone. Of course. Verochka felt guilty and asked Sergei to help her poor neighbor. She lived alone because she had such a temper. 3 husbands ran away from her to the other world. Sergei thought with hatred, and herself, by the way, 3 rooms added to herself, 30 square meters each. Where does she need so much? Once again, helping the insolent neighbor, he forgot and opened the front door in the usual way 3 turns of the key. Now the extension cords he had thrown were neatly cut and ended where the doors should have been. If one went out and activated the doors, the extension cords would not connect themselves. Finish. Connecting the brakes had to be done all over again. Verochka, coming back from work, would definitely see the duct tape on the cables and start whining about the new expenses. What should he do now? Get a tattoo on his hands with the right combination for his memory. He'd taken a 2-week vacation at work, so he could do a little work on the new rooms. It was comforting to know he wasn't the only one in the house. Word of mouth spread like wildfire. Half of the tenants in his entrance had already used the services of this firm. A week later, after the contract had been signed, he met his neighbor Mikhail Kondratyev waving a familiar figurative key outside the house. Kondratyev had his own large apartment, 90 square meters, no less, and he rented out 2 other apartments. He obviously didn't need more living space, but somehow he couldn't resist. Did you buy square meters from them too? Sergei asked him. Sure, laughed Mikhail. We should take it before it's too late. Otherwise, it will soon be overcrowded. I ordered the maximum square meters for all the apartments at once. And what is the maximum? Sergei was surprised. Are you not familiar with their prices? 100 square meters, 1 room, and the contract is for an individual only. I bought 3 rooms in 2 apartments at once. Now I'll rent them to Tajiks. They'll live there and make repairs for me. It's a real bargain. Not bad, Sergei admitted. And you and your wife, how much did you get? Kondratyev asked in turn. 2 on 10 square meters, answered Sergei. But we can increase it later. Yeah, what a sucker. Now you'll have to chase after them. Do you know how many people want to increase their living space in Moscow? Mikhail stated, now, if you didn't take the maximum at once, that's it. Further expansion only by appointment, and the record, brother, they have a year ahead of schedule. Sergei felt deceived and blushed. Verochka, when she finds out, will drink all the blood out of him, and the blame will be solely on him. And it did not matter that they had no more money. They could have taken out another loan and gotten into debt. She'll figure out what a real do-gooder should have done for his family. To make up for his mistake morally, he asked Kondratiev, "Aren't you confused by this situation? From somewhere a firm has come up that expands space out of thin air. How do they do it? Why is there no information about it in the media? How come there's so much convention and secrecy? Have you read their contracts carefully? They advertise verbally and drop brochures in mailboxes." "I've been in business for 7 years already," answered Kondratiev, "and I understand perfectly well that in our country you can't do it any other way. If you want to earn money immediately, not when you are allowed. Those who invented this scheme are real geniuses. They are now chopping cabbage and getting a huge number of people hooked on their services, until the state came to its senses and decided to get their hands on them. It is one thing when there are 1,000 clients and the state can easily forbid them to use this service, but it is quite another thing when there are 100,000 clients. Then it is not business that adjusts to the state, but the state is forced to adjust to business. They are now outside the legal field, and they take advantage of it. I don't care where this space comes from. It works, and I really like the way it works. When the authorities get wise to it, it will be too late. But we're human beings to adjust to the situation. You understand? You'll say 100,000 too." Sergei shook his head. "You don't believe me? Go to the forum. New Horizons. There are already more than 1,000 users there," advised Kondratiev. Sergei registered on the forum the same day. While he was on vacation, he often looked there, especially in the section, Repair of New Living Space. Everyone had similar problems. No windows. Electricity could only be supplied by extension cords. The walls couldn't be finished, but it did not diminish enthusiasm. Ideas on the forum flowed like a cornucopia. If it was impossible to work with walls, then the floor and ceilings could be quite friendly. Many complained about the cold in the rooms. Skilled craftsmen equipped the rooms with electric floors. They installed electrics on the floor in columns and stretched ceilings. Some managed to make steam heating. Even the toilets. User Samson.ilk, for example, wrote, "It is very important that the size of the new room was more than 30 square meters. Then the installers can achieve an increase in its height. So, I managed, when buying 80 square meters, to get a height of 7.5 meters. Now I have a pool in my room with a maximum depth of 3.8 meters. The only problem is the water intake. Now I will convert the apartment for this purpose." User Kapitoka asked, "Gentlemen comrades, who knows why New Horizons sell square meters in such a peculiar way? 10 meters? And if I want 12 meters? There is nothing about it in the contract." User Piyuher explained the problem. "Yes, it is not written in the contract. I asked the installers. They say it's the equipment. The scheme of drawings comes from the calculation of 1 square meter. But if you do not adhere to the decimal system, there are failures. That's why they sharpen the software that way. Perhaps in time they will remove such restrictions, but you must agree that it is better to get 20 meters than 12. Verochka decided to decorate one room for herself and the other for her husband, and Sergei worked tirelessly. He draped the left room with pink fabric and installed lamps in the corners of the room. The right room, she decided to equip as a study, and now she was looking for suitable shelves. "Let's make a library for you, because you're always throwing books around," she decided. "I'm fine in the kitchen," he objected weakly. "The kitchen is for eating," Verochka cut him off. "There's no point in throwing junk around the apartment. It would be a shame to bring guests. By the time his wife arrived, he hadn't had time to tidy up the extension cords and, of course, he got into a scandal. But that wasn't the saddest thing. Verotchka had gotten hooked on the New Horizons forum, and now she was unstoppable. Sergei had to listen to a lot of things, including about himself. His wife complained every day. Now the rooms seemed insignificantly small to her. She, of course, called the firm New Horizons, where she saw for herself that the expansion of living space was now available only by appointment. They had to get in line, pay off the mortgage and take out a loan, she decided. Now she wanted to increase the rooms to 60 square meters. Sergei wanted to give up. He already hated these rooms and all the unhealthy fuss around them. At the offer of his wife to sleep in the new room, he replied with a firm refusal. He didn't like the new rooms, that's all, and the excitement of the frenzy that swept over everyone. His neighbors and acquaintances were slowly going crazy. One weekend, Verotchka invited her friends from work to show off her acquisitions. The table was set up in the hall. Unnecessary things were put in the rooms. Sergei helped set the table and kept an angry silence as he listened to the envious praise. "Lucky you. We made it," said Verotchka's co-worker Pyotr Ivanovich Ignatiev. "But my wife and I have already joined the waiting list, now only for next year. We have a Brezhnevka, but, there's always not enough room. You, Pyotr Ivanovich, taste the herring. It's fresh." Verotchka blushed sweetly. Sergei passed the plate to the guest. "No, thank you. I can do it myself." Ignatiev gratefully accepted the appetizer from Sergei. "And what do you plan to do with the floors? Tile or porcelain tile? We've put down linoleum, warm. One piece. We're gonna expand. Why ruin everything with tile now?" Verotchka answered for her husband. "Oh, enough of this renovation talk. Let's drink to the housewarming party. Men, the glasses are empty," demanded Safrina, another of Verotchka's co-workers. Envy was in her eyes. Verotchka took the guests on a tour of the rooms, told them what had been done and how it had been done. Sergei only nodded in agreement. He didn't care about the guests or the new layout. He just wanted the day to be over quickly. A study, his wife's room, what did it matter? He didn't have a heart for any of it. Late at night, he sat at his old computer in the kitchen. His wife had never made him move into the study and read the news from the forum. Verotchka was tired of entertaining the guests during the day, and having washed the dishes, she went to bed. Sergei finished the leftovers and finished his champagne. Reading another new message, he choked with surprise. "Guys, help! Urgently need help. Made in a new room sanitary unit and punched a hole in the floor, as advised by user Shurik 2000. Under the gutter. Now from the hole pours green sludge, and the fumes from it sting my eyes. Half the apartment's flooded. Deactivated the rooms. Who's been through this? Help me. What do I do? Is it toxic? Do I need to call tech support?" The message, asking for help, hung on the forum for an hour, after which it was deleted. Then there was a notice from the forum administration about the revealed gross violations of the rules of using the property extended with the help of the fifth dimension. Attached to the notice were the clauses of the contract, where it was stated that the integrity of the rooms could not be disturbed, and that New Horizons has the right to unilaterally terminate the service contract in case of violation of a number of rules. Then followed a list of forum users with whom the contracts will be terminated within 24 hours. These users were advised to remove their personal property from the expanded space within 24 hours to avoid increasing the damage. There were about 50 users on the list. Among them, Sergei saw the very same Shurik 2000. So he was going to be disconnected for his harmful advice. He remembered that indeed, when he was engaged in finishing rooms, there was a whole separate thread dedicated to the organization of sewerage, and several people were discussing the possibility of punching a hole in the floor for sewage. Tuso got through to the neighbors below. After that, the branch was flooded with criticism and snide comments. But it looks like somebody did it. Where did he punch a hole? Sergei wondered. He searched in vain for this thread on the forum, but could not find it. Already deleted. Oh, that Russian inquisitive mind. But the forum was constantly replenished with new messages. The next few days, Sergei, returning from work, sat on it as if obsessed, trying to gather bits and pieces of any useful information. In vain, Verochka called him to the pink room, demanding love. In vain, she bought new underwear and hinted at favorable days for conception. He'd grown cold to her. The very thought of making love to her in those damn rooms gave him disgust and headaches. He tried to explain it to her, but only met with a wall of female bewilderment. Slowly, it all escalated into a family boycott. Cook your own food and do your own laundry, since you don't need a wife, Verochka announced to him. Sergei only remained silent on this ultimatum and switched to a diet of pasta and sausages, causing another explosion of indignation at his wife with a mountain of unwashed dishes in the sink. Verochka slept in the pink room out of spite, and he slept in the hall, listening at night to every creak from behind the ajar doors. The forum expanded every day more and more. Threads for people on waiting lists, threads for those doing renovations. The lost and found threads. Yes, there were some of those. Please help. We lost our key to the apartment. Our apartment has 2 rooms of 60 square meters. With furniture. Is there any way to get them back? Made a nursery 50 square. In a new building. The child is 5 years old. Daughter Masha was with her grandmother. We're at work. Came back, opened the key as it should be, and the room is not. We wrote to tech support. They came and said that the integrity of the room had been compromised. And that Masha and her grandmother had stayed there. It's been over 24 hours. My husband and I are terrified. What to do? The firm said they are not responsible. They are ready to make us a new one as an exception. But who's going to give us our relatives back? Has anyone sued them yet? Please, we need help urgently. Parents would leave their children in their new rooms unsupervised, and the children would mess up the pattern structure and stay in the room forever. It is impossible to return the room to its previous state if the paint structure is damaged, the administration warned. But the branch continued to be peppered with messages. The inconsolable parents cried out for help. They received condolences. Children were not the only victims of the fifth dimension. There were construction workers who accidentally or foolishly damaged the walls. Even pets who carelessly licked the dangerous paint. There were cynics, though. Strange people in our country. We got a unique opportunity to improve our living conditions for relatively little money, but we don't want to use the instructions at all. It is as if it is in our very soul to break and experience rules that can lead to death. For some reason, when a child left unattended sticks his finger in the socket and dies from an electric shock, his parents do not sue the power grid. Everyone understands that elementary safety is violated, but here it's as if they've gone off the chain. How to sue? How to profit from a fatal mistake? How to profit from the death of your own children? How many children should disappear in these rooms until you finally realize that safety rules are written in blood? Wrote user Inkvisitor, for example. Reading as sympathizers pour dirt on cynic Sergei unexpectedly came across information about animal behavior. Among those who wanted to sue New Horizons was a woman who kept 19 cats at home. The pets did not feel very comfortable in the expanded living space. And if the dogs still tolerated, the cats raised a real revolt. I bought, for my kids, a room of 70 square meters. I gave all my savings, and they snort and refuse to go in. I forcibly dragged them in there to train them, then closed them in the room and locked them with a key. When I let them out, Maruska jumped out and hid behind the refrigerator. She hasn't eaten anything for 3 days. She just yells, and the other cats are yelling after her. The neighbors are complaining about me and threatening to evict me. I read the contract from cover to cover and nowhere does it say that cats do not tolerate this fifth dimension. Damn it. Can you recommend a competent lawyer? Sergei decided to see for himself the cat's reaction. He and his wife didn't keep pets at home. Because of Verochka, she was allergic to fur. She was allergic to any kind of animal. She was afraid of rodents and hated parrots. Sergei remembered that in the entrance of the house, on the first floor, lived a stray cat, which was fed by neighbors. Muska. He brought her in while Verochka was out and locked her in the study, after removing the extension cords. Then he went out to the landing and deactivated the rooms. After waiting about 30 to 40 minutes, he turned the key in the lock and went to check on the cat. Musia burst out of the room with a furious howl and clawed at his face, scratching him bloody. He struggled to tear the furious beast away from him and kicked it out into the entryway. The theory was confirmed. He wasn't the only one who didn't like these rooms. Verochka, returning from the store, caught her husband in front of the mirror. Sergei was dabbing the scratches with hydrogen peroxide. What happened? She asked in fear. On the rake fell, muttered Sergei. Or maybe you brought a mistress. Nail marks. Verochka was excited and suddenly sneezed. What is it? A cat? Sergei, we agreed about cats. Sergei hid from her in the bathroom and latched the door. You'll clean the whole apartment. Verochka shouted outside the door. I knew it. You want me out of the apartment with the cats. Sergei turned on the water so he wouldn't hear her. What is this dimension? Where does it lead? Where did the green slurry come from and what should we be wary of next time? Why are cats afraid of expanded space? Thought Sergei sitting in the bathtub. The paint system with nanobots works, but how it works is unclear. Within a month, the number of Muscovites who bought housing from the New Horizons organization had increased to 40,000. It was already an impressive figure. All the important information boiled down to one thing: you can buy one room of up to 100 square meters and install a maximum of 4 such rooms in one apartment. The possibilities of one apartment of any area were limited to 400 square meters of additional space. And then do whatever you want with them, just don't disturb the nanobot pattern. Plus, you can increase the height of the room up to 10 meters for separate money. Oh, and there was also the mystery of the keys. Some users complained about a squeak in the keys. It annoyed and frightened them. Most often they squeaked at night. The shaped keys had seals from the manufacturer and could not be recoded. For example, it was impossible to use someone else's key to activate the apartment. In the head of the key, according to the developers, there was an activator chip and a battery, a pill. The administration apologized for the creaks in the keys and referred to the flaws in the system, reassuring users that there was nothing wrong with it. The main thing is not to forget people and animals in the rooms during the deactivation of the expanded space. A week later, it got even more fun. The activities of New Horizons had finally attracted the attention of the state. In the evening, Sergei and Verochka sat in the hall in front of the television and watched the president's speech. For the inhabitants of Moscow, this speech was to be momentous. To be the fifth dimension or not to be. 2 weeks ago, the Moscow government decided to impose a temporary ban on the activities of the New Horizons organization, due to numerous complaints from users demanding compensation and expanded rights to the new property. Complaints to the controlling structures inevitably caused a split on the forum, and everyone split into 2 camps. Some wanted everything to stay as it was, mainly the very first users, and supported New Horizons. And others wanted to protect themselves and their rights. They wanted to insure their property. They wanted to privatize the new living space and be able to sell it. They were not satisfied with the so-called rent. Even Sergei and Verochka were reconciled by watching the bacchanalia going on in the city. Sergei secretly hoped that the activities of the firm will be banned and he will be able to breathe easy. And Verochka was worried that they would deactivate their rooms. She even ran to the daily rallies in defense of the fifth dimension. They were her rooms, and she wasn't going to give them up without a fight. The rallies drew massive crowds. Even the opposition, even the communists, didn't draw that many in their best years. The bulk of the mass consisted of queue jumpers. When the government only reacted, New Horizons sent out a SMS notice to all users and those who had waited their turn, where they honestly warned about a possible complete ban on the use of new spaces and deactivation of old ones, with whom they had already signed a contract. And they were clearly not going to return the money. Many of the purchasers were not laughing, and people rallied in squares day and night. The traffic on the central streets of the city was paralyzed. The Moscow government had to bring the police to the city from all over the region to avoid mass riots. In the end, the president himself could not stand it and got involved in the case, ordering to sort it out in a short time and work out a solution that would suit all parties. Today, he spoke in person. Verochka excitedly held Sergei's hand. President Pyotr Vladimirovich Vladimirov spoke from the screen in a reserved tone. He spoke curtly, but succinctly. His words were simple and understandable to every Russian. He began his speech with the difficult economic situation in the country, about the role of the state and the tasks entrusted to its shoulders. He spoke well. I even wanted to smile to support him. Smoothly through the economic difficulties and obstacles created by political allies, which hinder the well-being of compatriots, he moved to the topic of the fifth dimension. Lately, we have only heard that the state is the enemy of the people, that the entire government are bandits and thieves who came to power only to continue stealing and robbing. That's not true. I would like to point out that we are people like you, and we're no different from you. We are ordinary Russians, and our task is for all citizens of our great country to live well. And I assure you that every effort is being made to do so. We recognize that we have launched an innovative project that has been kept secret for a long time. And yes, at first it was not regulated in any way in terms of the law. We wanted to demonstrate new opportunities and perspectives to the people of Moscow, and for the first few months, please note that no taxes were collected from users of the fifth dimension and the price was the lowest. The state initially assumed part of the cost of installing the equipment, materials, and made a preferential tariff for the first users. And until the end of this year, all the benefits will be preserved. But from the next year, we will have to pay taxes, but only those who want to buy housing provided by New Horizons in full ownership. Victory! Exclaimed joyfully Verochka and kissed Sergei on the cheek. We won! MDA. Sergei sadly supported her. Kondratyev's neighbor's words turned out to be prophetic. When the people sat down, enough people, the state decided that it was pointless to fight with such a senseless and better to lead this mess. And at the same time and start cutting money under the guise of control. A new department at the Ministry of Construction will deal with the fifth dimension. The president continued to broadcast. Besides, in connection with the increasing number of cases of safety violations, all citizens who have purchased housing in the fifth horizon will have to take out compulsory insurance for themselves and their relatives. What a good president we have. He solved everything at once. Verochka rejoiced. Now we'll be able to take ownership of these rooms. No, first we'll expand the rooms, and then we'll register them. Sergei looked at the ajar door in Verochka's room and he got a headache. I hate it. He thought, swallowing anal gin in the kitchen. How much I hate it all. Did you hear what the president said? Verochka shouted from the hall. This is just the beginning. Soon it'll be even better. I'm sure it will, Sergei mumbled in reply. In despair, he sat down at the computer and started typing, "Headache sufferers who have acquired fifth-dimensional rooms." The search engine gave him some interesting results. Then he surfed the forum and found the right users. The next day he called one of them, and 2 days later he received an invitation to a meeting. The League of Detectives gathered in the garage. Along with Sergei, there were 9 of them, 7 men and 2 women. They brought beer and snacks. Sitting on old chairs, they discussed the problems and mysteries of the fifth dimension, put forward bold theories, tried to understand and help each other. They had all bought rooms in New Horizons. and they all had headaches when they were in them or near them. The owner of the garage, Anton, told Sergey, "I wanted to make a workshop. I'm an artist and this is what I do for a living." At first I thought to buy a transformer box, but when I learned about such a shnyaaga, decided to show originality. They put me a room of 90 square meters. You can ride a bike inside, but you can't live in it. The first night I almost went crazy. I had a headache. I hallucinated all the time. I see crows with big beaks peeking through the window or pink fountains, and my apartment is on the 9th floor. What the hell are fountains? Then there's an eye on the ceiling blinking at me. Couldn't take it. I rented out my apartment and moved into the garage here. I'll live here until winter comes. I put a cat in the room, admitted Sergey. So she almost took my eyes with fear. Cat? Anton snorted and led Sergey to a fat man sitting in a corner with a full bottle of beer. Meet Roma. Roma is Sergey. Roma has been locked up in our room for 3 days. Tell the new guy how it is. Sergey said hello. Fat Roma nodded and asked him to sit next to him. It's a total asshole. My mother-in-law locked me in there. The bitch. I was on a bender at the time. She took advantage of the fact that my wife and kids had gone to the country. I was renovating the new rooms. I had a headache, and I didn't realize it was because of them. So I drank to stop it. My mother-in-law saw that I was no good and left me there. Bastard. And how is it there? Sergey asked. Roma sipped his beer and looking at the bottle quietly said, "When the door is locked, the symbols in the room start to glow. This pattern is like a cage, and you're in it. Your head turns into a cauldron being hit with a sledgehammer. I was there for 3 days. Then my wife came back. And you didn't suffocate there?" Roma shrugged. "No. Maybe there was enough air in the room, or maybe something else, I don't know. But I do know one thing. It was torture. Unparalleled torture." A young boy came up to them and joined the conversation. "Hi, romantic. Well, did you get revenge on your mother-in-law?" "Avenged Lyoka. I left home," answered the man. "Let now their mother-in-law repairs." "Haha, let me get another beer," offered him a guy and extended his hand to Sergey. "Alexei, I am. They're gonna kick me out of the house for breaking the key to the new room." "How so?" Sergey was surprised. Alexei brought them a bottle of beer and sat down next to him and told them, "My father decided to invest his money profitably. He bought 4 rooms of 100 meters. Maximum equipment. The noise in the key just pissed me off. It squeaks quietly, but constantly. It's like hitting glass with styrofoam. So I waited until my father wasn't around and broke the seal on the key. And the damn key just went off. I got silver paint all over my face. I could barely wash it off. Now I'm not my father's son." Sergey began to go to the meetings as often as possible. He talked about his thoughts and observations. They told him about theirs. The meetings became a real outlet for him. In the meantime, the New Horizons firm was in full swing in Moscow. Sergey opened the door. He looked glumly at the district police officer and shouted to his wife, "Verochka, it's for you. The rooms will be checked. Come in, don't be shy." He offered the policeman and then left for the kitchen. Verochka fussed around the policeman, showed the contracts, her and her husband's passports. Then they looked at the rooms. The policeman took photos of the rooms, the key, and the lock of the front door. When he left, she attacked Sergey with indignation. "You could have gotten your ass out of that chair. Why do I have to do everything like an idiot?" "Because you are a fool," suggested Sergey, sitting with his back to her. "And you lazy asshole," she gasped with indignation. "There's no one to hammer a nail in the house. You're always walking around. Confess. Have you found someone else? Have you got a mistress? Then you can be sure I won't be alone either. You can get the hell out of here." "As you command," indifferently answered Sergey and began to pull on jeans, getting ready. Verochka, seeing him leave, ran crying into the pink room. She spent all her time there now. She put in 2 salt lamps and flavorings. And she breathed according to Ilona Gayski, a fashion blogger. This blogger, she'd put 100-meter rooms in her already huge house, and now she was teaching women how to live properly. The 5th dimension allows you to lose weight and cures even problem skin. She claimed, just a month of treatments and the blemishes on your hands are gone. You just need a few hours regularly. Sergei tried to appeal to his wife's voice of reason. In response, she cleverly used examples. She pointed to magazine articles on the internet, and famous scientists on TV. Everyone said that the 5th dimension was useful and that thanks to it Russia would finally make a real technological leap, leaving the West far behind. She has 500,000 subscribers. Retrograde. Verochka shouted. So what if he has a headache? Just tell me he's found someone else. I'm still young. I want children. You think 500,000 people can't be wrong? Sergei boiled. But in response, he received only tears and reproaches. Throwing on his jacket, he went to the landing. The elevator did not work again. Going down the stairs, he ran into a puffing old woman dragging a bag on wheels. Malak. Do I need to go to Serpukhov? She pestered him. He sighed. Let me help. Intercepting the heavy bag. What do they always put in there? He helped the old woman up to his floor and walked her to the door where Timofeeva's neighbor lived. At the front door hung a sign, Moscow Serpukhov. It's 9.00 to 18.00 inch. I rang the doorbell. A dog barked. The neighbor looked out and smiled at him gratefully, accepting another passenger. Come in. Come on in. Dick. Yuck. Shaggy diver, as Sergei had time to notice, in the corridor of Timofeeva's apartment, carnivorous licking. And how much is the ticket? Worried, crawling over the threshold of the old lady. 150 rubles. One way. On Moskovsko Highway, you'll get off, explained Timofeeva, accompanying the passenger. And the elevator does not work? It doesn't work, mother. I barely made it, complained the old lady. The door slammed shut. Sergei studied the sign gloomily. What is the world coming to? Now they allowed the use of apartments to move from city to city. You just have to have an apartment at your destination and renegotiate the contract. Clever neighbors like Timofeeva immediately seized the opportunity. The road to Serpukhov would take the old lady about 5 minutes. She goes into Timofeeva's room. Timofeeva will lock her in there, turns a new key in the door. Then she calls her relative in Serpukhov. She'll open the door from her side and the grandmother will be at her destination. How does it work? Where does the energy come from? Nobody cares. Kondrativ is running around like an asshole. He bought an apartment in Dmitrov, in Orikovo-Zuyev, somewhere else. The state has exempted such grief carriers from paying taxes for a whole year. That's why they're all pissed off. Why go to the bus station? Download an application where the nearest neighbors with apartments in the desired direction are indicated and go to them. True, the official carriers howled wolf at this, but they were quickly explained the advantages. The wear and tear of roads is reduced. The number of individual entrepreneurs increases. And the fact that now there is no order in the entrances, that now passengers crap and spoil common household property. So all this is all temporary difficulties. Sergei went to the garage to Anton the painter. He finally stopped living in his apartment and now lived in the garage. He also worked there. Sergei every time found in his studio new paintings. Everywhere the same theme. A huge eye against a brick wall. It was painted differently, and the eye seemed to be different each time, but Sergei felt everything is not so. The eye was the same. Usually 3 or 4 of us would get together. They drank beer and exchanged news. Today they played cards. Fool's game. Today I went up on the roof. I wanted to look at the antenna of the monitoring station, Veniamin said over the cards. He was new in the group. He was in electronics. He was running around, measuring the level of radiation in those who wanted to see it. He was trying to understand the principle of nanobots. Anton had brought him in after Veniamin had almost killed himself, refusing to believe in the possibility of traveling quickly through space. He was still convinced it was impossible. And did not get bored? Roman asked. Roman didn't come home. He lived at work. He filed for divorce. He was a skeptic and was of the opinion that if he didn't understand something, it was simply because he wasn't educated enough. I have to figure out how it works, Veniamin replied. We had a wonderful teacher at the university, God rest his soul. He used to say that if only science could achieve a different space, even if only in microscopic dimensions, it would be everything. A giant leap in the development of all mankind. For all mankind, I might add. And what do we see now? Some pathetic excuses and formulas that miraculously work. There is a terrible pumping of the population from the TV. We are fed propaganda about the greatness of science and the breakthrough of cosmic scales. But why are we the only ones with this technology? Why doesn't it use energy? Why does it work this way and no other? I'm ready to buy these nanobots, but they're not for sale. What do? Scrape them off the walls? Yes, but only once, Roman grimaced. You'd better think about why New Horizons offers its services only to individuals, and there is no area larger than 100 meters? Why the state allowed to use apartments as carriers, but there are no parking lots? Such a unique space can be used for warehouses, but there are none, or rather there are, but small no more than 100 meters. Don't? Sergei asked. He felt that now Roman would start up and start again. There are a lot of you like that. They come and make their theories. And we have them all molded. The government tells us one thing from the screen. Scientists on the screen tell us another. On the forum, they tell us another. Showbiz celebrities tell us the same thing. But there's no truth. There is no truth. Everyone thinks the way he wants, Roman continued. Ram, stop it. Have a drink, Anton suggested. Roman was silent. He blushed, grabbed the bottle and drank it in one gulp, wiping his mouth with the palm of his hand. It's because of the stencils, Sergei explained to Veniamin. What stencils? Clapped his eyes at the newcomer. The stencils of the fifth dimension installers, Venya. Roman gestured that he had calmed down and was ready to explain himself. You come here every time and tell us another stupid thing. Climbing on the roof. You've been in your roommate's room with a dosimeter. Did you see the process of installing the room? I did. So tell me, asked Veniamin, enlightened, so to speak. Sergei and Anton looked at each other. They had heard the story 100 times. Roma found new ears today. Everyone thinks it's some kind of sacrament. The installers kick all outsiders out of the room for the duration of the work. They put on their hazmat suits. They drag a door with a jam into the room they've decided to enlarge. They bring paint in canisters. And what happens next is a whole lot of nonsense. They take a stencil the size of the door. They put it on the wall. They peel off the wallpaper so it's bare. They screw the door onto the jam. They paint the stencil on the wall and close the door. Then they take the key and the lock. The paint dries fast. 2 smokes and right in the room in the mechanism of the lock insert the key. They perform the operation and open the door. That's it. The room is ready for use. Then, deactivate the room and go to put a lock in the front door, said Roma. And how can science explain this? Where are the wires? I take it you have a theory too? Veniamin sighed. I have, nodded Roma and handed the newcomer a bottle of beer. I was not thinking about energy consumption, but why there is no development of this great idea. Why other countries are suddenly quiet. At first, when only the state recognized the fifth dimension as a national project, there were shouts all over the world. Let's bomb Russia. Russia is a sponsor of terrorism and does not want to share such important technologies. Trump was choking from the podium. It's been 2 months and it's been quiet. Rooms are being sold. People's apartments are being moved. What's next? Why don't other regions have this? Are we so special? They say on TV that things are going too fast. There is not enough capacity. We have to slow down, said Veniamin, but here I would agree. What is the coverage? The whole region. And now you're already on their side. Roma grinned. You support the party line and are ready to confirm everything they'll tell you. Unconsciously ready. But I'm of a different opinion. There is no breakthrough. It's all about stencils. There are no rooms under 10 meters and over 100 meters, which means there are only 10 stencils. What's your point? I think these space pockets were originally made for the military, but there was no military use for them. So they decided to make money for the government by using the population. And they're doing a good job, I'll tell you. Much more profitable than nuclear weapons lying around. Again, other countries are quiet, so there are no outstanding achievements so far. Roman told his theory. We could store radioactive waste there. Veniamin shrugged his shoulders. It's a good theory, I don't argue. They played a few games like that and the interest faded quickly. Shall we go for a smoke? Anton suggested to Sergei. Standing outside they smoked and Anton confessed. I'm leaving soon. I can't live like this anymore. What happened? It's the fifth dimension. I think it's haunting me. At night, I dream of plasticine people with human eyes coming down to me from the sky on threads. Every night, sighed the artist. Maybe it's just nervous? I do not know. Anton grinned sadly. And how are you with your wife? I'll leave her. Probably Sergei with hatred inhaled. My life is a real hell. Every day Ilona Gajskaya is at her first. I already think that I live not with Vera, but with Ilona. My wife gives me a headache, and the rooms hurt. I sleep at work, and in my apartment I'm in bed and sitting at the computer. I understand. I'm going to live in the region. There's a dacha village there, quite decent, although some of the houses are abandoned. But you can make a deal with the guards and live in a nice house for a penny. Anton reported. The district police officer came to you already? Yes, today. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. Sergei nodded. Aha, so soon they'll come to my place. I'll have to hurry up with the sale of the apartment. Or they'll put it on the books officially and the price will collapse in 2 times. Thoughtfully estimated the artist. I'll have to give in the paw of the realtor. It's a pity I don't have enough money. He looked at Sergei with a puzzled look. Have you heard about the private party New Horizons is throwing in a week? Of course I have, Sergei grinned. Verotchka's all about it. Her goddess Ilonushka promises to be there. But only a select few can get to this party or corporate event. I don't know what it's called exactly. Not exactly. Selected users of the fifth dimension, Anton corrected him. For example, they sent me such an invitation. For me and my sister. But my sister is studying in Germany now. I understood. There will be a lot of users among those invited. Wanted to visit this party myself, but I'm afraid the district officer will come, as usual not in time. Do not want to buy tickets from me? What? Sergei was surprised. Go with your wife to this party. Maybe under this case makeup? And maybe you can find out something there that ordinary people are not supposed to know? You can tell us later. But I need money now. I need it badly, begged the artist. Sergei thought and asked, how much do you want for them?